Hello, this is Curtis Crowe of Crowe Studios, and today you're going to see some sample shots of the Canon lens 135mm f2 lens. Alrighty, so let's get started. As you may already know, this is a segment on YouTube where I take 20 to 25 sample images, and I provide them here for you in a video where I describe my experiences with the lens, what I like about it, what I dislike about it, and I even provide in a link in the description, so I highly suggest you click that link in the description, the high-res images that you'll see here today, so that way you can zoom in, pixel peep, and really decide if this is the lens for you. Now, this is my out-of-the-box test where I pull it out of the box, the lens that is, and I take a picture of something. Preferably fur bearing, something that's got a lot of texture to it, because I want to zoom in on that first image and see if there's that detail I want. If you are testing sharpness for your own lens, I do highly recommend that you do get a cat, dog, anything that's got texture. It doesn't have to be a cat or dog. It could be a brick wall, it could be some kind of fabric, rough fabric, and start taking some pictures at different apertures and see how sharp they come in. As we can see here, there's definitely some detail here. I did kind of misfocus on the eye. That was my bad, and not the lens's fault, nor the cat's fault per se. Got a lot of detail right here. It's very thin where the amount of detail is, because this lens definitely has a very shallow depth of field, especially at the aperture I was shooting at, which isn't even stopped all the way down to wide open. Here's another image. The color absorption of this lens is phenomenal. Very bright colors, very sharp detail, and the transition between what's in focus and what's out of focus is very smooth, which is very good and gives you a very professional, very good feeling. Now, here is the minimum focus test where I take a picture at minimum focus. Now, I did forget to stop this at f2.0. That was my bad again. But even at f2.8, your actual depth of field is about 1/4 of an inch of sharpness, maybe 1/3 of an inch. And then the rest of it's just pure bokeh and pure out of focus elements. And that right here, what you see right here, is very smooth and very nice. So moving on. Sharpness on small objects at a distance is still pretty dang phenomenal. Now, I'm going to talk about sharpness a lot with this lens because it's a lot like the 200mm f2.8. Matter of fact, they were actually designed very similar in design, and that were actually released on the same day. So a lot of benefits that you see in the one lens, you're going to see in the other lens. So detail from a faraway object, I mean, this is phenomenal. You can see details in the feathers, details in the legs. You can even see the nails here. Even though this little bird is so far away, I mean, you could crop this really well. Let me see here. Let's get a crop in here, and you wouldn't lose a lot of detail because just how amazing this lens is and how sharp it is. You got so much texture right there. You got so much detail in there. You know, cropping would be no big deal with this lens. All right, let's move on here. Took a picture through the rear view mirror. Technically self-portrait. You can see my eye right here. See this dark spot? And then there's what's around my eye. And there's my pupil. And there's the white of my eye. I mean, you could do that with any lens technically. That's nothing fancy about this particular lens. But that's not a big deal picture. Street sign. This will be a good one for zooming in and doing what you guys do. Now, this was shot in servo mode while driving, so you will notice it is slightly out of focus. The motor in it could not keep up. I don't know if that's so much a fault of the lens itself or the fact that the Canon 6D is fairly limited in its autofocusing system. You know, it's a budget full frame camera. They have to make cuts and drawbacks and stuff like that. So that could be one of them. I don't know if that's the lens. I have to be honest with you. It could be the lens, could be the camera body. Now this one's a lot sharper because I believe the vehicle was stopped here. I mean, you can see every little hexagon here. You can see the nut, the washer, A lot of detail on the sign, all the little pieces of dirt. Got some tape, it looks like here. Very good texture, very good detail. Another one, you could crop it and, you know, bring in that detail a little bit more, that texture if you wanted to. And that bokeh in the background is just phenomenal. And this is shooting at f2. So that level of sharpness, and you're going to see even more sharpness in a couple photos from here. That level of sharpness at f2 is just amazing. Alright, so what we have here is shooting into the sun test. I gotta say, which a lot of lenses have problems with this. There is no perfect lens for shooting something towards the sun. But this is just to give you an idea how much light will spill and wash out your image. So there's that. There's the out of focus. I was just trying to get a better idea of what the bokeh looks like. This is very out of focus, obviously. But now going into the more nitty and gritty part of the test. This is 8000 ISO. It was very dark out. You can tell that the lights are on here. It was very dark. I'm surprised the camera's even picking up this much light out here because it was pretty dang dark. And this lens was just able to eat up that light and still give me a sharp image that even at 8000 ISO, this is still a usable photo. Very, very usable. And when you're zoomed out, it's extremely clean. Sure, if we get in there and we really, really, really look, you can see that grain. But when you zoom out, that detail is pristine, it is sharp, it is good, and I love it. Here's another image for another low light test. Now, there was some lighting, because this was at Arby's, so there was some parking lot lighting, as you can tell, because the ISO is at 320. But it is still pretty dang dark, and I'm able to get away with a 320 ISO at f2 with a reasonable shutter speed, and the detail is phenomenal. It's still able to lock in focus even though it's dark and give me a level of image quality that is just phenomenal. We got some flower tests here. Minimum focus distance on the flower. Obviously the whole flower did not come in focus because when you're shooting at f2 at 135, because it's not just your aperture that affects your depth of field, it's also your focal length and your distance from the subject. So when we have something that's as long as a 135 and we're getting as close as we can and shooting at f2, I mean, this is the minimum focus or depth of field that we can possibly get with this lens, basically. Stepping a little bit farther back, got a little bit more of the flower focused in. Just look at that shimmering detail all up in here. You can just taste the texture, which is great. And that bokeh with the other colors in the background right here, beautiful, love it. I mean, this is a well-performing lens. If you are doing any kind of professional photography, this is definitely the lens for you because it's going to get you the quality that your company deserves. Now, I did ask a individual to help me out with some test shots. So we got some test shots here. Everything was kind of rushed, so don't mind that. Just to kind of give you an idea of how sharp this lens is, how much detail is being pulled out of the face, the skin. I mean, you can see every pore in the eyes. You can see the eyelashes. You can see the shadow casting over the pupil. I mean, there is just an insane amount of detail here. If you are shooting someone with blemishes, this is not going to be a good lens for those individuals. You want a softer lens. Maybe a 50mm f1.4 might be something that would be better because you're going to get a softer image. You're still going to get lots of bokeh. And it's still going to give you a better image for them. But if you got someone that's got clear skin, this is just a phenomenal lens. Let me see here. A little bit of texture here. Again, with the rock, shooting at f2.0 with a little bit of moss here. Just trying to catch that detail. Just trying to see how well that texture comes in. And a little bit of color fringing. Just a little bit of color fringing. but no, it's not a big deal. You barely see it in the rest of the images. Let's see here. Another image here. I mean, that is just, and you can see the little bits of her makeup that is just kind of smearing off. Just so much detail. I mean, if there's nothing they can hide from this lens. There's just so much detail. Something else you want to be careful of is getting one eye in focus and the other one blurred out. On this image, it doesn't take away from it, because when you're zoomed out, it still looks great, but it's definitely something as a photographer you do want to be aware of. Again, more details on the eyes, because that's really where portraits, where the focusing point should be on a lot of portraits. A lot of texture in this tree. A lot of detail in the hair. You just see every strand of hair. And it does get a little soft towards the end. I could have stopped it down to f2.8, f3.2, and that would have made that little bit of hair in the background sharper. But really, I didn't feel it was taking enough away from the image, so it wasn't worth getting rid of, in my opinion. Good thing about this lens, too, is if you're on a full frame body, 135 isn't so far that you have to stand 600 feet back. You still have to stand pretty far back for, let's say, a full body shot like this, but for those portrait shots, the chest up, the waist up, anything like that, you know, you're not standing 300 feet back like you are with the f200, or not the f200, the 200 millimeter that I reviewed earlier. Just so that way we have one in color. I've brought one in available that has color in it, and this will also be available in the description when you go to click that link in the description in order to see these images at the highest resolution, so you can see those details for yourself. You see here the bokeh on the grass, little splotchy here, but overall very soft. So you can see it's very soft here. When you got to some of the highlights, it's a little bit orby, but it is still beautiful bokeh. Grass, honestly, with this lens, with how sharp it is, you do have to be careful, because it does add a little bit extra texture. It makes the grass look extra stiff, especially in the black and white. Kind of looks like a bunch of little sticks. And just keep focusing on those eyes and getting that detail in there. Probably could go over her face with skin softening a little bit, especially where she lifted up her eyebrows here. You can see that her skin, either she's got makeup on, which I think it's makeup, or maybe her skin's a little dry. But zoomed out, you can't even really see it. If you were to get a big print of this, those details will come out, and that's something you got to be self-conscious of too. When you take big prints, you're not looking at it on a 21-inch monitor anymore. You're looking at it on a 30, 40, 60-inch print. Now, this is a minimum focus on a person's face with the f2.0 on the 135. Got as close as I could to the face, and one eye is somewhat sharp. It's a little soft here, but if you see over here, this is where the detail's at. So that is literally how paper thin it is. This eye completely out of focus, and this eye is just mostly out of focus, and then a little bit over here. So that image isn't even really a keeper per se. Still would probably present it to the client, but it would not be a part of my best of the best of the best. This one's a little bit better. The eyes are slightly missed, my fault, but they're at least even, where the other image, it was off balance, and you don't want to be off balance. And like I said, a little skin softening here, because this lens just picks up all that detail. I mean, we're seeing pores, we're seeing those microfiber hairs that cover so much of our bodies, and we're seeing little pieces of makeup and glitter and just a lot of detail. So it can be a high maintenance lens in post-production. And here's our final image 24, to finish it off. And just want to talk about the compression real quick. If you have the 200 millimeter, it is still going to be fairly compressed, but obviously not as compressed as a 200 millimeter. Backgrounds are going to be condensed, which is good for the 135. It's good for portraits. If you're going to take this out shooting for, let's say, street photography, I wouldn't quite say it's there, because it just falls a little short. Because if you're trying to keep a distance, that's where the 200 millimeter shines, and the 135 just makes you stand that little bit closer. That can be very awkward, especially if the people notice you. I mean, I don't know how people do it with 35 millimeters, where they have to get right in the person's face. But very good lens. I'd have to rate this as obviously a premium portrait lens. Definitely, again, it's not going to be for landscapes. It's not going to be for street photography. It's not going to be for wildlife. This is a niche lens, but what this lens does is phenomenal. Definitely worth every penny. It's definitely worth twice the price of the 50mm 1.4. Even though this doesn't go down as low as the 1.4, but that longer focal length gives you a more compressed background. Still brings in an insane amount of light, and the sharpness compared to the f1.4 is just insane. And I would probably rate this, definitely for portraits, I would rate this better than the 100mm lens that I just reviewed. And but that's about it. I mean, the bokeh is good. Everything about this lens is good. It's fast focusing. The bokeh is good. It's compressed. Like I said, the focal length is definitely a little odd for anything outside of the portraits realm. But other than that, I mean, it's fantastic. That sharpness, I mean, you just can't get over how sharp that lens is. And that's what happens when you start getting into premium lenses, those L lenses, is you start seeing a level of sharpness that you can't even touch with cheap $100 to $400 lenses. So let me know what you guys think of this sample video, or these sample photos, I should say. Feel free to download those sample photos through the link in the description, which will give you the high-res images. And let me know what you guys want to see next. Comment, like this video, please, and share it with any fellow photographers, anyone who's thinking about buying some lenses. Do you have a boyfriend, girlfriend that's really into photography? Definitely send this to them. And please subscribe. Your guys' support means a lot to me, and I'm trying to make you guys proud. Thanks.